So we are live here, but we're just going to wait a few minutes and I'm going to share the stream over to a few groups.
Okay.
Also make sure it gets tagged. So hang on tight with me.
Sure.
To share. Hey, Landon, just give us a few seconds before we get started, waiting for people to jump on. I'm going to share this over to a few areas so that we can get everybody watching. So, let's see here. Click. Share. All right. I think we're good.
You're amazing, Leo.
Thank you. I don't hear that enough.
You can ever hear that enough.
Thank you. Hey, Sumir, good to see you. If you guys are just jumping on, please comment and say hello and just put in the word live so that we know you're watching live. And for those of you who are watching on the replay later on, go ahead and comment the word replay. And we're going to get started in a second here. I've got Ashley on here with me, and we're going to get started. But let me take care of a couple of things. That's good. That's good. Okay. All right. Welcome to Wisdom Club Live. I'm super excited today to have Ashley Damaj. Did I say that right?
You're just on fire. I mean, everything's right today.
And I'm really excited to have her on because she's a specialist in behavior and also striving toward well-being. I want her to kind of describe exactly what she does. I don't want to take that away, but I just want to dive right in because we got, I know a lot to cover and she's got a lot to share. And so I want to get right into it. So Ashley, could you, for those of you, people that are out there, don't have any contacts and don't know who you are, can you just describe a little bit about you, what you do, and more importantly, if you can talk a little bit more about your journey kind of up to this point as well. So take it away.
Yeah, so thank you. My name's Ashley, and let's see. I'll start my background. I am a nutritionist, a board certified behavior analyst, and a master's level therapist. So that is my educational background, and I'm the founder of a company called Mothership Wellness, which provides health consulting and coaching and behavior modification to individuals who are in need of those services. So my typical clientele that I see are looking to make some healthy changes in their lives. So either, I see a lot of individuals for weight loss, specific fitness goals, substance use changes, alcohol management, nicotine use, things like that. And I got into this field because I started using stimulants from a really young age to try to achieve an outer fitness aesthetic that really was not healthy. And, as we get older, the stakes get higher and we realize the impacts that we may have not recognized in our youth. So from about the age of 15, I had a cocaine dependency and smoked a lot of cigarettes and just generally was awful to my health, trying to achieve this physical outcome that really was not rooted in health. So, the dyad between fitness and health, or looking fit and actually being healthy, there's a big discrepancy there. So when I sort of began my journey to achieve genuine health from the inside out, it led me down a really science-based path with nutrition and behavior modification, and then a sort of spiritual journey for myself as well.
Great. Well, I mean, all those things that you mentioned are all like big components to like a really healthy life. And I want to kind of break that down a little bit. But before I do, so you as a young woman, you got into some trouble with some substance abuse and things like that. What kind of got you into that? And then as you kind of got older, kind of break that down a little bit of how you went from there and started realizing as you started growing older, and then how does the education component helped you along the way to where you are now?
Yeah, so a lot of what I work against in my practice is societal impacts. And what I mean by that, and how I'll answer the specific question you asked me, is, there's this sort of like unattainable ideal that we have in our society of who we need to be. And that's communicated to us at a very young age through marketing and advertising. And it is really at the benefit of corporations and businesses to have this unattainable ideal that's projected to our youth. Unfortunately, our prefrontal cortex is not really established at that point, and we don't have the savvy to understand what's going on. So I think for me, it was sort of recognizing the societal pressures that I had to look a certain way and be a certain way. And this was kind of in the 90s when it was really like heroin chic to be like super thin. And I really took that to heart. And so, I think to answer your question, like that is where a lot of things start. I see in my practice a lot as well with industrial food chains, for example, where it is highly beneficial to have, big agriculture come in and produce food in a certain way that isn't necessarily the best for us. It's all about that stock price and that bottom dollar. So I think a lot of my work personally and in my practice is peeling back the layers of societal impact and really recognizing for individuals what is their best self and who do they want to be. And that usually doesn't involve being super jittery and checked out because of stimulant use. The answer, for me was to be really fully present and able to connect and be authentic with people. And I recognized that that was not something that I could do with the behavior that I was engaging in. I also knew that having a family and a long life was not something that was feasible with what I was involved in. And I think a lot of people that I see are sort of on the precipice of those changes in terms of understanding, hey, like, I was an older parent, I want to be around for my grandkids, or, I want to stay involved in high intensity athletics, and my nutrition and my flexibility is not allowing for those things. So I think, life is a constant process of death and rebirth of who we once were and who we strive to be. And if we're vulnerable enough to really seriously look at that best self that we want, I think that there's definitely a way to strive towards becoming that person.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And it's so fascinating to me, like all of our journeys, through life, as we are young adults, if we're not guided properly, we didn't have the proper environment or something like that, we fall prey to all these pressures, like you're saying, like commercial pressures and advertising pressures and things like that. And then some peer pressures because they're also bringing in that pressure from their influence from the advertising world and stuff like that. And so we have a lot of pitfalls as far as growing up, earlier on. Now we're starting to wake up from all of this stuff and be really clear, like we know the difference between advertising and not, especially with all the social media stuff. It's more hyper aware that, hey, that's not necessarily real, and everybody
Yeah.
has this underlying agreement that that's not necessarily real. I know it looks real. I know that looks like they've got a perfect family or a perfect life and everything like that. Don't be fooled. Like, we're not buying into that more and more as we go along, and everybody is their own brand now. So we're all aware of that, as opposed to in the old days it was big companies, big advertising agencies, and then there's the rest of us, right? We're just kind of like being bombarded from it.
That's such a good point. I think that, the younger generations really have an edge up in recognizing that kind of stuff. And as we become sort of part of that system, instead of the, like you said, just the ones being advertised to, you sort of get a better sense of it. You become more savvy to all of that. Yeah. And I also like that you mentioned, protective factors. You talk about, okay, like if you have a strong peer group, and that's true for us as adults as well. I know that you're involved in like a hiking club and things like that. Like, our protective factors transcend our youth, and we can really establish them and rethink them in our adult life as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I grew up, so a little backstory on me. I came to the States when I was 11 from Taiwan, and when I came, so I always tell people I came on a Friday, like I flew in on a Friday, and then I went to school on a Monday, and I know no words of English. I only learned the alphabets just 2 weeks before I came, and that's all I knew. And I was thrown into a school, and this was back in South Pasadena, where the elementary school had about 1,000 kids, and it had 5 Chinese kids and 1 Black kid. And so everybody else was white. And so like you can like kind of picture this, dominance of, the differences. And I had never seen, all of my friends in Taiwan were all Chinese. Like I didn't see other races, and so but for me, I didn't really think about it that way. I was sort of like, oh, well, you're just people. They're just people. I never thought of it in any, I'd never thought I was different or anything like that. But the reason I want to, go ahead.
First, I have to ask you a question. When you think about like, I don't know, like you talk about mental toughness and positive psychology and all of those things. And I think, God, like, where did you get that mindset from? Because everyone else would be pissing their pants on the first day. Like, where did you inherit that thinking from?
I think I just inherently, for me, I had this sense of adventure, and like everything different was an adventure to me. Was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a different flavor. That's a different thing. Oh, what's that about? And I'm always been a learner, so I wanted to learn rather than, I don't question it or shun it or anything like that. And that's kind of just the way I approach, even now, life in general.
Curiosity is known to be one of those like massively protective factors.
Yeah. So the reason I brought that up is because I always thought growing up that when I'm around so many different types of people, and I thrive on being around different groups of people who had different type of interests, and they all brought value to me in whatever ways. And I never thought of them as, and now I challenge my own thinking, where before I was thinking like, well, I'm around these people, and this person loves marijuana and he smokes all the time, and this other person is not healthy in another way or something like that. And I was around those friends growing up, and I always thought that, oh, that's them. I don't have to be like that. And I never really was too much influenced in doing what they were doing, but I was around it. And so I thought that maybe I was a little bit different in that way, because other people, when they're around their peers, they want to do the same things that their peers were doing. But I stayed more individualized, in a sense that I didn't have to do those things. They're my friends, that's fine. But just because they're smoking or doing whatever, I didn't have to do it.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point, like when from a behavioral psychology perspective, like and just a psychological perspective in general, when I hear you say that, I think like, yes, peer pressure is an environmental factor where if it's around, you may be more prone to use it. You also may want to sort of like fit in with the crowd and do what they're doing, like that could be part of it as well. And I think, you know, what's consistent about what you shared earlier about sort of your mindset is, for me, there was a sort of outside of the environmental aspect, there was something within me that was unsettled. And I think, you know, I had a desire to change my body chemistry, right? So there was the body chemistry piece, right, that I wanted to change. And then also the environmental impact where it was there. I grew up in the Bay Area, which is also called the Yay area for a reason. And, you know, it was there and available when I wanted to sort of change how I was feeling. I also feel like substances can be used to expand your consciousness or escape your consciousness. So I feel like, I don't know, like, I do think it's a good thing to try different things in your life if you want to. But I think like, and I do think those things can expand your consciousness in a different way, thinking different, rewiring some ways that you think. But when you're doing it because you want to escape your consciousness and you really don't feel settled in like who you are and you use it a lot, that is where I think the problem comes in.
Yeah, that's really difficult, right? For most people, there's that gray line of like, well, am I doing it? Am I doing it to escape something? Like we don't stop to think about it a lot of times. Like we just do it, and or am I doing it for some other benefit, right? And so I think that's the tricky part as human beings, is that we often are doing stuff and going through the motion, especially when it becomes a little bit of a habit. Then we think about it less and less, and it just keeps going. So I think you bring up a really great point regarding that, is that things can be used to your benefit, or things could be used to escape. And I think the escape route is very
You know, think about it. It's not just substances, it's food, it's social media, it's Netflix, it's porn, it's so many things. I mean, we use different things as like sensory input to sort of change how we're feeling or what's happening with us. And we can definitely, to your point, get stuck in a cycle of that.
Yeah. So, so what got you like really interested in like what you do now, what you're passionate about? How did you kind of evolve this way? I know we heard a little bit about your upbringing, kind of thinking about that, but tell us about your what you're truly passionate about in this field.
Yeah, so I find an immense sense of comfort in science and empirically based intervention. So that's really what drew me toward behavior analysis as a field. It is the only science psychology. So, you know, you can get a bachelor's or a master's in art or a bachelor's and master's in science. Behavior analysis is a science. There are laws and principles and, you know, proven methodology and proven interventions. Same thing with nutrition. You know, in the nutrition field, it is extremely a black hole of information. And so I really wanted to tackle those things from like a science-driven approach and make sure that I was using empirically based strategies like for myself and my clients. So, you know, that's sort of the scientific piece. And then with my company, I try to sort of intermix that like hard science with a sort of like yogic hippie vibe of wellness and food as more than just, you know, fuel, but as a tool for connection and you know, yoga and all those good things. So I guess like my company exemplifies my approach in life, which is I want to know that I'm doing the right thing. Like I don't want to be buying some slim tea and like eating some gummy that is promising to make me better, when I realized that like systems as a whole are not looking out for me. So yeah, like I think it really integrates my science background and also my desire to have more Eastern flavors to my life. And, you know, in the United States, not only are we at the mercy of these large corporations, but we also live in such a, you know, stressful day, like working so much, and that has an immense impact on our nervous system and our hormones and everything. So I think really just looking at wellness as a holistic integrative field and looking at individuals as so multifaceted. You know, a lot of people are shocked when they come to session with me to shed some body fat percentage, and we're talking about like their spirituality or their relationships. It's also interconnected from a cultural standpoint to what you eat and what you do for a job. So I'm into all those things. That's all I want to talk about all day long is food, working out, you know, the human body. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, you're like it's like music to my ears, because everything that I think about every day, like I go from my wellness first and then everything else follows, you know. And so I love what you're saying. And I always think of the world as, you know, East meets West, but then at the same time, like, you know, we don't think about it that way, but just because we're still a Western society here. And so there's a lot of those things that come in, but more and more, you know, yoga, I do yoga every morning. That's the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning. It helps me wake up. It helps me get my body moving. And then I try to put in some meditation afterwards. And I go for a hike in the morning. And that's when I start to do my process and my planning and things like that, get my thoughts straight. And then I go on to the rest of my day, appointments, work, whatever. But I want to get to know a little bit more about your approach and philosophy. And I know that they can be two separate things. And you touched on it a little bit about when a new client comes, you kind of want to find out what their thoughts and behaviors are and get to know them. And from there, how would you kind of approach that? So two things I heard was, could be somebody who come to you that want to stop doing something that's not good for them. And the other thing is somebody who is striving for higher level of performance, whether performance in their work or performance in just their lifestyle, like they want to improve their lifestyle, they want to be happier, they want to feel better or something. Am I kind of on the right track there?
Yeah. And it actually dovetails into what you just said about how you start your day, which is a term that I use with clients called collateral impact. I mean, anything that we do, like I bet you on your hikes, you come up with some badass ideas for your business. I bet when you're in meditation, something becomes very clear to you. I mean, everything that we do has a collateral impact on the other verticals of our life. And so when I work with clients, we work through the 10 pillars of wellness that I focus on in my practice. And those are, you know, things like nutrition, exercise, substance use, stress management, relationships, spirituality, medical conditions, etc. And so, you know, I use a lot of cognitive behavioral theories in my work, behavior analytic theories, life coaching material, acceptance and commitment therapy tools. So it's a lot of exercises. I start with an assessment with clients to really get a holistic understanding of what exactly is happening. And then I pull in different pieces from whatever empirically validated strategies I think will be effective for that client. So their plan is totally customized to their needs and their goals. And then from like a science-based perspective, you know, my interventions that I come up with on an individual basis for a client, those are, you know, independent variable. The dependent variable is always what the client's goal is. So if they want to reduce body fat, like that's the dependent variable. We are measuring that all the time to see how our interventions are impacting that goal. If their goal is to, drink less, lose weight, improve their blood pressure. I mean, I've seen it all. So whatever we can do to say, hey, like we're tracking this, so we know if what we're doing right now is serving it or detracting from our goals. It's really important for me to have, again, like a science-backed way of looking at these things. Otherwise, like the whole Freudian approach of laying on the couch and talking about when you were a baby, that doesn't do it for me. And I don't think it's very effective. People want actionable, goal-oriented, short-term things that work,
Yeah, so it sounds like when somebody comes to you and they have a specific kind of goal that they want to change in their lives, you can get to know them and then prescribe a certain behavioral things that you can track, and then based on some of that data, you can start to adjust and see what works for them and what doesn't. Am I on the right track?
Yeah. They tell me like what they want to change and like why they're there to see me, and we figure out an operational way to define that so that we can see if the interventions that I'm proposing are actually impacting that dependent variable.
Okay, and so how do they go about tracking that? Is there some sort of technology that you use, or is it like email or?
Yeah, everyone is so different. It really depends on a variety of different factors. So it can be, when they come into session with me during the week, we're tracking those things. It can be that they are doing it themselves if I'm fading out. Like my job is to get myself out of a job. So when their data is tracking solid, then I fade out and I work with them during that process so that they can sort of track it on their own. And, I've worked with clients that have, like I worked with a woman recently that had cervical cancer cells. And so like I partner with her physician, right? And so the doctor's doing the test. So we see if it's negative based upon the lifestyle changes that she's making for those 3 or 6 months. So it really depends on the person and what the plan is.
Mm-hmm. And so what are some of the clients that are coming to you for? Like, what do you see the most of people
Mm-hmm.
wanting that are coming to you and asking for certain solution stuff? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, well, COVID is a really interesting time. I've seen a huge spike in people with like in alcohol and using food as a coping mechanism. Like those are big ones right now. Prior to that, like, I worked for a number of years with younger populations with food intolerances and sort of getting them to eat healthy food, fruits and vegetables. So, right now it's definitely food and alcohol and COVID type of behaviors that I think like everyone's been impacted with. Before COVID and like in my regular practice, it's eating disorders, substance use, just general weight loss and wanting to change the body composition. So, after pregnancy or after weight loss, wanting to add like some perk. So, I mean, I see it all. I see medical conditions as well, like blood pressure, diabetes, things like that.
Well, I mean, there's you have so much to offer there because I know that from your bio that you are a certified behavioral analyst, and then you're also a trained nutritionist, and then you've also have a master's level in therapy. Is that right? Am I missing anything else?
No, you're not.
Okay. So I think like you and I think the same way in terms of like, okay, in order for me to do my job well, I have to know how to help my clients. I have to know how to communicate to them. So let me be an expert communicator. Oh, well, in order to do my job, I need to do contracts and I need to be able to work certain applications and programs
Yeah.
on the computer. So let me be, because
Yeah.
wearing these like expert hats, and like you've totally done that. And so you're like the kind of people like I would love to hire, because I was like, okay, I know that you're taking into account everything that affects, what it is that our goal is,
Yeah.
whether it's from nutrition, whether it's from our brain, or from our actions and behaviors.
Yeah.
So I think that's super valuable, and you obviously have put in a lot of work and a lot of study into it.
A lot of personal experience. That's the big one.
Yeah, that too. Like there's nothing that can replace that, right?
Yeah.
So
Hey, can I ask you a question?
sure.
Yeah, so I want to ask, like, what areas of health do you struggle with in terms of consistency or things that you would like to improve? What are some areas for you that are tough?
Oh my God, I was like waiting for you to ask me more questions like that, because I'm over the last, I want to say, well, I'll back up a little. I started doing yoga seriously and daily about 2.5 years ago, and it
Mhm.
totally changed my life. I realized that is the best thing that I could do for myself, and not that not that I knew in the beginning, but I knew like I had to do something that was consistent. And so I started doing yoga every day, and it just changed my whole body as far as how I function. And we don't
Yeah, I
realize.
mean, the hormonal implications of a regular yoga practice are documented.
Mhm.
In what way did it change your life so much?
Well, I started noticing different things along the way, and it kind of stack on top of each other. And
Uh,
so I had some digestion issues, and that started going away, and my appetite was better.
yeah,
Then my mood was better, and one of the things that I had was hypertension, because we were talking earlier, I worked in the technology for over 15 years, and I sat at a desk for 15 years, like every day, 8, 9, sometimes 10, 12 hours a day. And,
mm,
when you're focusing, in front of a computer, you tend to do this. And so I had all this tension in my
oh,
shoulders and along my upper back, where the shoulder blade,
uh,
attaches to your back. Like that whole thing was all bound up,
I,
like that. And we don't notice it. I just thought that was normal. There was nothing I could do about it. I didn't know what to do about it. And when I started doing yoga, just layers and layers of muscle tissues start to get loosened up and stretched out like every single day. And
that's
I was,
awesome. Can I say a couple things about
sure,
that?
sure, of course, please.
Completely forgot, like, digestion is one of the total things, like, everyone wants to talk about the digestion when they
Yeah.
come to see me, because people have really awful digestion. And one of the reasons why, and one of the reasons that yoga helps so much, is that our autonomic nervous system has like two default modes: our parasympathetic nervous system and our sympathetic nervous system. So when we have a regular yoga practice, it's able to take us from the fight or flight response to the breathe and feed response. So that means that the blood is going from your muscles, which is like when you're in fight or flight, your blood is rushed to your muscles, and it's going back to your GI tract, so it can actually work really well. That's just one reason yoga is so helpful with that. And then related to the tension that you were experiencing in your back, I mean, this is a perfect example about how we were talking about society being constructed like as an anti-health sort of situation. Yeah, like like millions of years of evolution, have worked towards our bodies functioning a certain way, and here we are, like this now. So it's totally like anti-health.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help
Oh,
myself.
no, no. I love what you're saying. And that was like a jumping off point for me. When I was married, this is 7 years ago, my now ex-wife introduced me to yoga. Now, she wasn't a regular practitioner by any means, but at least we went and did them together for
Yeah,
a short time. I wasn't super into it. I just thought that was time for us to spend time together. So we
yeah,
went to classes and stuff, but we never did that on a regular basis. And when we split up, I stopped doing it because I didn't do it for the reason that I'm doing it now. And so when I did start to do it, it was like I jumped off a cliff, because now I'm opening up like my body, my organs, my digestion's kind of like what you're saying. And I just continue to peel layers and layers of things. So things I've done since the yoga, you know, meditation. And then I also saw somebody who was specializing in biofeedback and neurofeedback. And I don't know how familiar you are with it, but a lot of people don't know that biofeedback is basically, you know, we have two main organs in our body, and I'm sure you know this is, you know, how your brain is functioning in conjunction to how your heart is functioning. Because when your heart is functioning properly, then it sets off all the autonomic system in the rest of your body, as far as your lungs, all your organs functioning properly, because that's kind of, the heart is kind of where it starts. If it's beating properly and it's calm and it's beating strongly, then everything else can get in line. And so when I saw him, he was just showing me like, okay, we're going to just check your heart rate variability. And so every time I saw him once a week, I think, for about a year and a half. And he would just check my heart rate variability. And I would basically be doing these breathing exercises while he was checking it. And he would just tell me what my progress is every week. And so for those people who are listening out there who don't know, heart rate variability can be measured from anywhere from like, you know, 0 to 100, let's just say. And when I went in there, mine was measuring about like 12. So, and yeah.
And we heart rate variability, do you mean like 1 minute your heart rate is 120, the next minute it's 80?
No, so heart rate variability is different from the heart rate itself. So what you're talking about is the heart rate. Heart rate variability is that when it beats, when your heart beats, in between the beats, there's actually little stutters.
Yes.
If you're stressed, you'll have those stutters, and those stutters keep your heart from beating as at its optimal, you know, functionality. And so, so it's different than your heart rate.
Okay.
And so we're actually measuring those little stutters in between. And I don't know what those numbers are correlating to, but I know that
12 is bad.
12 is bad. Well, I know that when I left there, I was getting up into 55-ish, and that was like huge. I mean, like, you know, literally 5 times what I was doing before. And you can feel it because when your heart beats well, it's circulating all that blood properly, and then all the rest of your organs, you know, follow suit into doing what they're supposed to do. So that's the biofeedback part, and the other part was the neurofeedback. The neurofeedback is that they'll put probes in different parts of your brain so that it's not putting any electricity or nothing. It's basically just measuring the electricity that's being fired off in your brain and measuring how it's, so if he's measuring between left and right side, which, you know, they do different things, your different parts of your brain. And so when, let's just say the left side of your brain is not functioning properly, or not, it's maybe you're depressed, or maybe you're not, you're stressed, or whatever it is, it will actually stop talking to the right side of the brain. And the right side of the brain thinks like, oh, what's happening? I don't know what's going on. I need to compensate. In order to compensate, it ramps up what it does best on the right side in order to compensate for the lack of activity on your left side. And so that happens in the left, the right side, the front, the back. You're talking about the frontal lobe, things like that. And so he would measure that, and we would target certain parts at the same time. And then we could see in a graph how things are functioning. And all I would be doing, I would be looking at a screen, and it would be, it's almost like the way he describes it is like giving my brain a workout so that those connection between the right side and the left side can start to reconnect each other and balance out again. And so it really helped in how I, because when your brain's not functioning, you can be easily stressed. You have no tolerance. And so he got me to a place where like the front end, the back end was balanced, the left and right side was balanced. And we could have gone a lot further into that. But I certainly felt the difference. Like I was able to actually work through a day without feeling fatigued, without feeling stressed, and all that kind of stuff. So I learned like a lot about my brain. I learned a lot about my heart. So nowadays, if I'm stressed out, I have behavioral ways to kind of work on that. Say, hey, I need to calm down. I need to know how I'm thinking and how to calm myself down and get back into functionality of just my physical body. And so that was, again, another layer of the onion peeled away. And lately I've been working on this thing here. You know what this is? This is a Aura ring.
It looks like some bling.
Yeah, so this ring here is like a Fitbit.
Oh.
Yeah, except so they found out that
Let me just say something about what you were mentioning before. So I haven't read any research on that, but that sounds interesting. And I think you highlighted something. You said like now you can tell when something's out of whack. And this is another sort of tie-in between Western and Eastern where, like mindfulness is such a buzzword right now, it's really like that, having that self-awareness to be able to understand when something's off and know ahead of time what interventions you can do that work for you that are going to bring you back to a good baseline.
Yeah, one of the big things I learned in regards to that is that I didn't know what calm felt like because my whole life was not calm. My whole life was about some sort of stress. And in fact, whatever I was trying to achieve, I bring more stress to my body. So I never had a break. My whole life, never had a break to know like, hey, nobody came to me and say like, okay, this is what calm feels like. This is what calm looks like, So
I don't learn in school. It's like, let's
yeah.
the list. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so the neurofeedback, go ahead.
No, so you were able to have that awareness of not only what, like the self-awareness of when things are wrong, but also the awareness of what it feels like when it's right.
Right, exactly. And so now through that, let's just call it therapy, I have a baseline. I know where my baseline is and how far away from my baseline I am, and be able
Yeah.
to bring myself back to that baseline to be calm and be functioning again. That was the key. So from yoga to meditation to biofeedback to neurofeedback, and then this ring, it took me a while to. I'm never one to like do all of these tracking and stuff like that. But one of the health coaches that I coached with, I'm actually going to be interviewing him here in a few weeks. But he turned me on to this thing, and he talked a lot about the heart rate variability as well, because when you have a good, when your heart rate variability is measuring high and it's doing good, you can recover very quickly. So one thing that I learned recently is that when you're sleeping and your body is recovering, this ring tracks that heart rate variability while you're sleeping. And so when I wake up in the morning, it'll show me how my heart rate variability was during the night. And I can see how much rest I actually got and how recovered I am. And it'll give me a score and say, hey, you didn't sleep well because your heart rate variability was low. You weren't calm, you were stressed. Because, we all know that feeling like we didn't sleep well.
Yes.
We were like stressed all night with toss and turning or whatever. And so this tells me like if I had a good night's sleep, that next day I can actually push it. I can work harder. I can, do more. I can be more highly functioning. And other days, if I'm stressed and I'm not didn't sleep well, then I shouldn't push it. I should rest. I should not, try to put, gas on top of fire.
Yeah.
So
we're in such an interesting time in technology where the validity of like wrist and finger worn heart things, like I don't know how there we are yet, but we're entering such an interesting time where we're able to have this data tracking. It makes it really powerful because as far as I'm concerned, with most things, if the data is not there, it doesn't exist. So it provides a really good framework for us to be able to look at these things.
Yeah, and I really needed the education that I've gotten in the last couple of years through the biofeedback, the neurofeedback, to be able to get here to understand that, hey, this would actually be helpful for me because now I can track these things that I understand. I think a lot of people don't understand it. Because they don't understand it, they think like, I don't know what to do with that, like they have no context, to it. And so I think now that I can feel like, okay, I understand what I need to do, just like you would be as a coach to your clients. Like, okay, here are the things we need to track, and you're actually educating them, right? Like, oh, this is what we're seeing, and this is how it impacts your life. This is why you feel stressed, or this is why, you're uh, buffering with, food or
Yeah.
other substances, right? So I think that the educational component is really, really important, which is why like a coach like you could totally give that mindset. And for me, like once I jumped off that cliff, like everything was open for me, and I realized like, okay, I want heart health, I want mind health, I want to be able to do my hiking. I used to do 45 minutes of hiking and I was like tired, like I had to like take a nap. And now I just came back this morning from like an 8.5 mile hike, and
Well,
I was like, I'm feeling good. Like I can keep going. But this is good. This is good. Just gives me a really good idea of where I am in my body. And all of these activities are just for me to kind of see where I am. Because a lot of
yeah.
times we can get really, really, really sick and not even know it,
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. You almost need to um, get to that horizon to know what it feels like. And you think like, gosh, how did I live all this time not feeling so great? There are these constant horizons with our health when we sort of hit a next point and we're like, oh, this feels so great. So would you say like for you, the last couple of years, the struggle was with sort of stress management and just understanding how to undo some of the impacts that your day-to-day lifestyle were wreaking on your body?
yeah, there's so much, I had just broken up a long-term relationship at that time, and that really caused a lot of stress and confusion because we were like, oh, why didn't it work out? You know how we all do with relationships, and so that caused a lot of stress. And my lifestyle was, I'm lucky. I feel like I got really good genes, and so I've gotten all this time without any real bad health issues.
That's
Um, yeah, but then at the same time, I realized how much stress I was under from many different things. And then I was also changing careers and starting my own new business and stuff. And so that's a whole nother um, level of stress that I'm dealing with. And my mind is constantly figuring out, trying to figure out what to do. And as you know, as entrepreneurs, like we have to do so many things and we can't do them all at the same time. So we had to figure out what to do next and what's the path. And that was a really stressful time. And I had to just kind of like stop everything. It's like, okay, I'm gonna start from my body, from my inside out, you know.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so if I feel healthy and if I feel good, then everything else will just follow. The action will follow, the behaviors will follow, and the things I want to do, I'll be able to do rather than
impact. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It's like, listen, in today's day and age, it's very rare that we die from acute illnesses. It's long-term lifestyle implications over time that add up. Atherosclerosis, heart conditions, cancer, all of these things that are largely prevented by lifestyle and what we eat. So yeah, it's like, when we look at you saying like you don't have health issues that you need to deal with urgently, it's all of those sort of long-term chronic conditions that we need to look out for. And to your point, those are all lifestyle.
yeah, if I hadn't done all the things I'd done in the last few years, I probably would have gotten really bad digestion problems, colon problems, things like that, because our bodies don't last forever, and when we're younger, we're able to recover from them, and as we get older, we realize we're not recovering, and that's the part that I was really starting to get a little worried about, because if that continues and it becomes a chronic problem, then something's going to break, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and I didn't want that, and so the yoga really started that kind of process of like, oh, this felt good. Let's do more of it. What else can I do that
yeah,
feels good? And then we went to the meditation, and then we started thinking about like how am I thinking about my life, and what are the things that is causing me so much stress. Because if we think about stuff that if we think about fear, we have anxiety because of that, and I'm worried about business, I'm worried about, you know, money, I'm worried about relationship. Like our minds can just go crazy, and so I had to manage my mind as well to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah, and that type of reflection is so important, to be able to pause and say, like, what is serving me right now? What is not serving me right now? How can I sort of reprogram myself to reach my ultimate potential in the areas that I want to move towards?
Yeah. So I'll turn it back on you a little bit. How do you go about managing you know, your business and your world, your family, and things like that? And I know that uh, your your growing up was a big part of where you are today, because you realized that that was a learning lesson. The things that you were doing that was not good for you was a learning lesson for you for the rest of your life. How do you manage that with your family? I know you have a daughter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so how do you do that nowadays?
Yeah. So I really like something you said earlier in our conversation, which is, you know, you were recognizing how you showing up sort of, you know, calm and healthy and in your best mental space was impacting your business and things like that. And, you know, that's that collateral impact piece. So for me, I know like my sobriety and my mental health is really precious to me. And so what I need to do to handle that is like number one. So if that means that I'm going over my babysitting budget for the month because I just need to get out for a really long hike, then I'm going to do that. So I used to think that was sort of selfish, and I used to operate on like full cylinders go, like working full time through school and trying to be everything to everybody. And then realizing that really to achieve the goals that I have, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself first. So I am my first priority. And, you know, I say that and it still sounds a little selfish to me, but I know that if that's not the case, then I will snap at home. You know, I won't be able to show up the way that I need to be. So I do that through exercise, meditation, yoga, all of those good things, my nutrition, keeping my substance use in check. You know, I like to drink alcohol. I smoke marijuana sometimes, but making sure that, you know, all of that is on plan for me, for what my plan is. And so, you know, after that's done, a lot of, you know, I'm not doing public speaking right now. That was something that you know, when people used to hang out with each other and show up in public places, that whole thing. So with my business, I do mostly direct one-on-one coaching, and that's about 80% over Zoom or FaceTime and about 20% in person. So, you know, that is the backbone of my business. All of the other things, I just sort of project plan. You know, I had a long corporate career, which really served me from an organizational standpoint. Got a lot of like great training for that. So everything's project planned in terms of what I need to do for my business. I have a great network of other entrepreneurs that I meet with and sort of collaborate with to hash out goals and things like that. Yeah, I mean, for me, it really is that nutrition and exercise component. Taking care of myself first so that I can show up for my clients. Everyone knows how it feels to live in a way that is not aligned with the fullest expression of who they want to be. And because I do work in the space of being a coach and mentor to other individuals for all of these areas, I better make damn sure mine are on point. So yeah, and you know, with the business, I'm really happy that I took it slowly. I got incorporated about a year before I left my corporate job, and I sort of ran both in parallel for a while. And for me, that slow and steady approach has worked well. I know for other people, they want to give their full attention to it and like to each his own. But for me, I like to be really slow and deliberate about any changes that I'm making to my business, and make sure that I have contacted the right people, whether it's an attorney or a CPA. I want to make sure that I have myself that I'm making the best decision for the long term.
Yeah, awesome. I love what you said because one of my goals a few years ago was that, you know what, if I just get up in the morning and if I just do my yoga and I just take care of myself as the first thing, in the morning, like the rest of the day could like totally go to hell. and
Yeah,
then and then I'll still be okay because I took care of it. you know
yeah,
I took care of myself, and all the rest of the stuff, if it doesn't work out, well, that's okay. At least I have one thing to say, like, hey, I took care of myself. It's almost like, oh well, I'll go through the whole day and like not eat or something like that. Well, you have to eat before you can have energy to do stuff, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was really, really like
Right
really,
about that.
yeah.
That's that's a big part of my programming for people is what's your morning ritual, what's your night ritual. Your day starts the night before, so you better check that calendar, check in with yourself and your body, get your stuff ready, and then wake up at least 30 minutes before you have to do anything.
Mm.
Like, and I know that can be tough. Like, I work with a lot of busy moms, and okay, well, like your kids are getting up at 7 a.m. Like that means, for you to get any time to yourself, you got to wake up earlier. A lot of people are morning workout people. They don't get it in at night. So unless it happens in the morning, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I did was that, I was getting up at 5 in the morning. So I still do.
Yeah.
So we got on this group called the 5 a.m. Club, and
I
it's basically a conference call. And so you dial into this number, and thousands of people come on this call.
no
And
kidding.
yeah, and one person is the host, and they come on and just give a inspirational story or message of some sort. It's just like a few minutes. They just talk for a few minutes, and then that's it. Everybody hang up, and you go start your day. And so like it keeps you. I don't think of it as accountability. I think of it as like, hey, it's something that keeps you anchored to getting up at that time. And when you
Yeah.
think about it, thousands of people are coming on this call. They're all up. Not everybody's all. Most of the people are in California, but there's also in the other states and other time zones as well. But then there's people from Australia, from Spain, from you know, and there's millionaires. There's a couple of billionaires that come on, and so it just it's a little bit of an unconscious motivation to say like, hey, all these people are coming on, like I want to get up and do that too. And as soon as I'm done with the call, I get dressed and roll on my yoga mat and I do my
Yeah.
yoga. And
That's one Zoom call that nobody has their video on for though, right?
yeah.
I'm so glad that you told me about that. I didn't know anything like that existed. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I thought to myself like, okay, between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m., that's my time.
Yes.
I'll do whatever. I mean, yoga may take 30 minutes, might take an hour and a half. Maybe I'm just doing some yin yoga and just
Yeah.
slowly stretch out and be more meditative. Whatever I want to do, like that's my 3 hours of like golden hours for me. And
Mm.
whatever else happens after 8 o'clock when I do work, things are out of my control, whatever, it's totally good. I can feel good about going to bed and think like, hey, I took care of myself today.
Yeah,
So that was a huge component for me.
that
Uh,
is. Does anything get in the way of that for you? Like, do you find in different seasons of your life you're more or less committed to that, or is it like that is what you do every single day?
I do it every single day, but there is a little bit of challenge sometimes when it gets really, really busy. But I still think that even if I miss it or get up a little later, like 6 or 7 or something like that, I'm still anchored. I'm still anchored to what I need to do. Because if I get up later, if I get up at 6, then I'll give myself a little bit of time and maybe not start at 8. Maybe I'll start at 8:30. But we know like 8 o'clock comes along, the phone starts ringing, the text starts coming in. You know,
Can't hide from it.
yeah.
So another question for you: what's like your greatest indulgence from a like lifestyle or like food wise? Like what like when you really want to indulge, what does that look like for you?
Like I can spend enormous amount of time at the beach in the ocean. Um, I take my paddleboard out and it's just me
I
and the ocean, and like I'm just out there and there's nobody out there, and I could just sit and just it's something about the body of water, and I'm a Pisces or whatever,
yeah,
and then I'll see dolphins in the morning a lot of times.
Which beach do you like to hit at?
So lately it's been Dana Point, but I usually like to go out of Laguna Beach as well. So
Yeah.
I'm just about 10 minutes from Laguna, so it's easy for me to just shoot out and get out in Laguna. Yeah, it's super amazing. Like I'm super blessed to be living that close to, one of the greatest beaches in the world. People come from all over the world to go to it. And so
Yeah.
that's something that like really makes me feel part of, the universe,
Yeah.
just being out in the ocean and being out there. So there's something about it. I'm not sure what it is. And when I come back from it, I feel like somebody just like refreshed you, like, so
How
that was,
about a gastronomic perspective? Are you like sweet or savory? Like, what's your indulgence for food?
um, so I have a little bit of sweet tooth, but that's hard. That's a hard one to answer because for me, it's always like um, the combination of things. So
Okay,
I spent a bit of time in France, and
nice.
yeah, in Paris more specifically. And I remember all the food I ate there was so good. And it's this thing about um, having different courses, and they all give you that experience.
Yeah.
Like when you watch a movie, you want to see the beginning, the intro,
Yeah.
the development of the story, and then you want an ending of some sort. Like that's how I see food.
Yeah. Such a beautiful, like the United States is such a young country. We don't have a food culture. When you look at a lot of other countries, like France or Mexico, their way of eating is so consistent with research based um, qualities of food. Like a lot of vinegar is used with high starch foods, which totally regulates your blood sugar and insulin. The coursing out, the slow eating that you just mentioned, in the United States, we don't have any sort of like food culture that's passed down to us. So we have to rely on like health experts, which sometimes turns into a path that is like crash diets or things that aren't healthy for us, like keto, in my opinion, is not healthy for you, or Atkins, things like this. And so it's so interesting. It's like what really drew you towards that food culture is the fact that it was so established, built of thousands and thousands of years of people enjoying slow meals and courses of food and cheese and wine.
Yeah, I feel really blessed because I'm bicultural, and so I remember growing up, in Taiwan, and I just like get up in the morning, walk down the street to go to school. Like I walk to school, and I would see like the backs of people's houses opened
Uh-huh.
up in the morning, and they've been working for like a couple of hours already, and they're churning out pasta. They're like
Yeah.
the dough and like doing all that stuff. But one thing I realized about what's different about France was that their ingredients are so pure and so full of nutrients. Like I didn't have to eat a lot of food. I was so satisfied from a little
Yeah.
bit amount of food.
Oh,
Here, because the nutrition density is low, we like feel like we're feeling like we're not having enough of it.
totally. That's so true. I mean, there are so many reasons for that. I mean, I could talk for hours about this subject. Absolutely. Hi, Ruby. My daughter just got home. Hi, babe.
Hi.
How you doing? You want to say hello?
Hi.
Yeah. Did you have fun? Yeah. Speaking of food, I better go make dinner for us.
Yeah, it's dinner time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
well, we'll close out here. Now, I know you have a few quotes that you wanted to share with us. Maybe we can just take one and share with the audience, and we'll close out with that.
yes. Okay. I'm gonna go for the old school. Let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food.
And that was by Hippocrates.
Yes, sir. That's old school right there.
Yeah, I know. I think it's amazing to me how things like that could be taught to us for like been around for so many hundreds and thousands of years,
Yeah.
and we're still trying to learn them.
Yeah. It's like at least it's hip now to talk about it, right?
Yeah, totally. Well,
Yeah. We'll
Ashley,
talk.
thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for the time that you spent with us and sharing with us so much valuable information. I know that we have all the information here, how to reach you and find out more about you. Is there anything you want to tell the audience that you would like to have? Like, what's your ideal audience that you would like to speak to?
Yeah, I mean, I work with people of all ages and backgrounds. It's just really a matter of the need for behavior change. So.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
if all of you guys out there who want to have a better lifestyle, you want to do something, be as happy as Ruby.
Yeah.
Better lifestyle. I'm sure Ashley can help with any kind of nutritional things and weight loss, substance abuse, things like that. Please reach out to her. She'd be happy to help. And her number and her information is up here. Feel free to DM. If you have any questions after watching this, please go ahead and put it in the comment and we'll get back to you. Otherwise, that's all we have for today. And I appreciate Ashley for coming on. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Have a great Wednesday and I will see you guys soon. Have a good night, everybody.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.